Good afternoon, folks. My name is Zack Geoghegan. You might recognize me from the Max. Luckily for me, I am not here with Jack or Maggie right now. They have enough FaceTime on their own. So what we're going to do is something a little bit different that I'm going to try and start here. We're going to call it, for now, we're going to call it the BBNBA Bubble Talk. And what I'm going to be doing is going by kind of week by week, try and dive a little deeper into what is happening down in Orlando at Walt Disney World. Try and go over, I guess some of the insider bubble life scoops, some of the shenanigans they're getting into. We're going to break down the playoff scenarios. I actually have a couple things lined up for today that we're going to talk about. Shout out to that ambulance going by 1 minute into my first ever episode. We're going to talk about a bunch of former Cats that are actually absent from the bubble. We're going to talk about some of my personal favorites that are going to win, hopefully, this whole bubble thing, are the ones that I think have the best chance. We're going to talk about a couple players that I think we should all be looking out for, former Cats specifically, and might even talk about, if we have time here, I'm going to try and keep this light today, some of the jersey names that some of the players have picked out to wear on the back of their jersey for when the restart starts. So we're going to talk about I guess there's 8 or 9 or even 10 potentially players, former Kentucky players that are either out of the bubble for various reasons, have not arrived, have tested positive. Looking at my list here, we have Eric Bledsoe, De'Aaron Fox, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, who was just announced earlier yesterday by his coach that he is not there in the Orlando bubble. He is expected to be there relatively soon, though, I would imagine. Willie Cauley-Stein will not be there because of the birth of his child. John Wall is sitting out for injury reasons. Trey Lyles just had his appendix removed. Rondo with his hand injury. Darius Miller is still hurt from his Achilles. Bledsoe also tested positive. That's why he's not there. So he could potentially come back at a later time. De'Aaron Fox's injury is a short one. He'll probably come back, they said, by the first exhibition game. So they should have him for the playoffs, or at least the initial regular season games there. And as for Bam Adebayo, he is still not there either. So in total, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 players that either aren't there, who knows if they'll be there, won't be there. And that kind of takes away a big chunk of who we could have a chance to watch. So now we're kind of down to, Anthony Davis. He'll be the main player with the Lakers there alongside LeBron. A lot of people are going to pick the Lakers to probably roll the dice and win this whole bubble. I'm going to stick with the Clippers myself here, just for bench reasons. I think they're the team that's less prone to a slowdown after a hiatus like this, just because they can go so deep and they have to have so many off nights from so many players for them to lose a 7-game series, especially even against a team like the Lakers, just because, especially with the Lakers losing Avery Bradley and now Rondo, they're going to be diving a little deep into players that they probably don't necessarily want to use as much. So we'll see how it all plays out. Obviously, they have all those regular season games where they can kind of trinkle with everything and see how everything goes. The Eric Bledsoe injury, or not the injury, the Eric Bledsoe coronavirus thing, that will definitely not be a good start for their regular season exhibitions. They definitely will want him for the playoff return. He is probably one of their 2 or 3 best on-ball defenders. They're going to need him to play I think he's been playing a lot of point guard this year, so they're going to need him to help control the offense alongside Giannis and Chris Middleton. He's not going to be necessarily a huge blow, especially if they can get him back in the playoffs. That won't be that big of a deal. They'll be able to coast through and keep their 1 seed, potentially a 2 seed. The seeds don't necessarily matter right now. It's because home court's non-existent. So it's all about matchups at this point. So the Bucks can, if they want to tank games, they can, but missing Bledsoe out for those first, 8 regular season games is not going to be a huge deal. As for De'Aaron Fox, that injury will be a big deal if it continues to linger, apparently. So it is the same ankle that he missed about roughly 20, maybe 17 games earlier this season, with the same ankle that he hurt. So depending on how long that lingers, they'll definitely need him ready to go, because they have some ground to make up. They will have to maintain their status. I think they are 3.5 games out, so they will need to stay within that 4-game back scenario in order to produce some sort of playoff round, however that ends up playing out. So that will be a big one. Michael Gilchrist and Willie Cauley-Stein, not necessarily big impact players for the Mavericks. That's not going to be a huge blow for them. The depth a little bit could be an issue, but those two weren't necessarily playing much beforehand. So the Mavericks should be okay. That they should be a team to watch as well. That could make a nice run, especially with how potent their offense is. John Wall hasn't played all year. Bradley Beal's not playing for the Wizards as well. Neither is Davis Bertans, their third best player. So the Wizards are basically going down there with a G League team. They're not going to be any good. Don't worry about them at all. Rondo injury, if he ends up coming back, who knows? It's not going to be a huge deal for the Lakers at all. I think they'll be perfectly fine running with Alex Caruso as their point guard and LeBron and whoever else wants to take turns at it. Obviously, they don't have Avery Bradley anymore, so that will be kind of an issue, but they have plenty of guys that can kind of control that area. Darius Miller missing for the Pelicans. He hasn't played all year either, so that's not a huge deal. It would have been nice to have him on the wing, trying to get some open threes, especially from Zion, clogging up the paint. So he would have had a good opportunity, but the Pelicans are still in good shape. They're probably a team to watch as well, sneaking up the ladder there at the bottom of the Western Conference, hoping to try and force a playoff round. As for Bam and the Heat, that is the big key. The Miami Heat cannot afford to lose Bam going into this playoffs. They can absolutely make a run. They have nearly one of the deeper teams in the whole NBA, not just the East. They can go about 9 or 10 deep, depending on who ends up going down there. I know Derrick Jones Jr., one of their key bench players, hasn't gone down there. He might be down there now, but I know he was he announced that he had tested positive for the corona. And then another player as well, I think it was Kelly Olynyk or somebody like that. So they've had some issues, but if they can go down there full health and Bam eventually gets there, they'll be fine. As for players that are down there, I got a couple that I think should be the guys that we should be looking out for once they finally do get down there. I think number one has to be Tyler Hero, because he was hurt towards the end of the year there, or towards when the season was suspended, and he was on a roll. He's playing really well. Came back right before, actually. He played maybe a couple games before the season actually was suspended, but he was feeling very confident. He's doing good things on social media, so obviously he's feeling good about himself. I'm very interested to see how he goes down there. I think him and Duncan Robinson on the wings for Miami will be deadly, and they're going to just abuse that. This is a tournament where you only need to get hot on offense for a couple weeks. So if Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson can do that, the Heat are going to be looking really good. I'm interested to see how Tyler Hero's confidence over the last couple months tides over the basketball court, because I feel like those are, for him, confidence and the way that what's happening in Tyler Hero's life and how he plays is very much intertwined. The other player I think we should watch out for is Jamal Murray. He's kind of been quiet ever since his whole social media debacle a few months ago. He was probably smart in staying on that side of caution. But with him and apparently a new yoked Jokic, those two should be even better than beforehand when the season had been suspended, because even the Nuggets were starting to get in a little bit of a groove. And those two playing really at a high level, they're another team that, if they can get hot going for a few weeks, they have enough firepower on offense that they can pretty much score from wherever they want. It's really just a matter of if they actually do that. They've kind of struggled this year. They were really good at it last year, so we'll see which Nuggets team shows up. And there's also a third player I think we should talk about just for a second, Keldon Johnson from the Spurs. There's been plenty of LaMarcus Aldridge, and now Trey Lyles will not be in the bubble down there for the Spurs, so they're kind of having players knocked out. They're having to sign other guys. Keldon has been on the G League team, the Austin Spurs. He's been playing really well. The Spurs were liking what they were seeing from him towards the end of the season before he got suspended. So with the injuries and the circumstances, I'm not saying that he'll get a bunch of minutes, but don't be surprised if he can kind of step in and maybe go off on an 8 or 10 point spree one game. That would be pretty cool to see. He's definitely another guy I would take a look at. Here, I think we're going to just talk about the jersey names, and a few different Kentucky players have come out and talked about what they're going to put on the back of their jersey, as Adam Silver and the NBA have granted players the right to put a social message or whatever they would like on the back of their jersey, although these messages have been pre-screened and pre-approved. So my views on them are kind of, as I just said, they're a little wishy-washy. I like that, Tyler Hero and Bam Adebayo are putting, I believe they're writing Black Lives Matter on the back of their jersey. That's a very awesome and cool gesture. I'm also fine with Anthony Davis and LeBron James leaving their names on the back of theirs. It's just a matter of how much these players see this as an actual progression in fighting the social injustice. And I think there's sides to both of it. What does this actually do? What would writing those messages actually do if there's something that the NBA had to approve beforehand? If there are not actually authentic messages, if the players can't actually write what they truly want. I'm sure there are some that would like to write what they're going to have on the back of their jersey. But I also understand why players would be apprehensive to it and would prefer to just write leave the back of their name. Or I think it was Jimmy Butler maybe who said he's going to leave his empty. So he's going to try and do that. So I think that trying to get a little more creative with it is cool. The gesture itself by the NBA is nice. I think it's more of just like a hollow type thing. So we'll see how many players actually go through with it and what they write on the back of those. I think there was 20 or 25 different approved things. So it'll be kind of cool to see different jersey names and stuff. So expect guys like Tyler Hero and, like I said, Bam Adebayo to write different messages on the back of their jersey. As for the rest of this episode, I think I'm going to close it up. As you can tell here, I think I have a little bit of a vibe that I would like to go with. Maybe some serious NBA talk with talking about the jersey names, and then just some informational stuff like talking about which players are out, who's going to play well in the bubble, who should we be looking for, stuff like that. So what I want to do with this new little series that we're going to be starting to do is have you all try and help interact with me. Send me questions, what you want to know. I've watched the hell out of the NBA this past year, specifically the last 3 or 4 years combined as well. So I have enough knowledge to hopefully give you all some insight as to what is actually going on, because this bubble is still confusing as shit, and we're going to try and figure it out together. We've got about 13 days now until it starts. So like I said, I'm going to try and do this a weekly thing, so try and send me some questions on Twitter, what have you, and we'll see if we can navigate through this bubble together, the dirty bubble together. And I'll talk to you all next time. Thank you.